10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to RichCast, the best RichCast on the internet because, as far as we know,
it's the only RichCast on the internet.
I was going to say in America, but on the internet. Now, whilst you all enjoy whatever ad you're watching at the beginning of this stream, and I will skip mine.
Yeah, we're watching our stream and watching the chat
We
and
got
skipping
one
our own ads.
for the new Sacramento A's, no longer the Oakland A's.
Yeah, there you
Now
go.
it's the Sacramento A's. Anyways, yes, RichCast. So in the past, we've called this many things, including RichCast, and last couple times, we've called this Just Chatting with Rich and Chris because we forgot that we
We forgot our own branding. So we're going to go with RichCast, which is short for RichAlvarez Podcast.
Don't forget to get all of your RichCast merchandise whenever we decide to make some.
Which you can't because it doesn't exist
Because
yet.
it doesn't exist. But it might soon. So
If we do this consistently, maybe we'll actually get brand merchandise.
and people in the comments are like, oh, well, that's hilarious.
That's hilarious, Rich and Chris. We know you guys are going to disappear for like 3 months again. Hey, we did one last weekend, so we're two weekends in a row.
That's right. This is the first time in as long as I can remember that we've done 2 weekends in a row. Yeah, and you may have noticed that we've uploaded some videos and shorts throughout the week to keep things interesting.
True.
In the parasocial relationship that we have.
A healthy parasocial relationship, might we add.
So, the goal is we're going to try to do this more consistently. We'd like to do it once a week, but things do happen sometimes, and then we'll be really sorry about it. But we're going to try to do this more consistently. That's the point.
Okay,
What?
I have to read that comment by McKinley Miles, who said, can we get a t-shirt of Rich throwing out a fishing cast? And I didn't get it at first, but then I realized it's Rich Cast.
Right. Actually, that is really
That's
clever.
actually very clever. Good job,
It's really
McKinley.
good. Thank you. We'll do that. Maybe. I don't
that's
know.
awesome.
Yes, there's a lot of you joining us today. Again, the main topic that we're going to be talking about today is best video games of all time. We kind of came up with this idea.
It was loosely based on a topic from one of our shorts.
So last week, one of the things that we talked about was best Final Fantasy songs, and we did upload a short about it that I, kind of summarized what we were talking about. And that was a topic we made up on the spot. But, then I saw the comments on it. People were like, oh, you forgot Final Fantasy 9 or you forgot Final Fantasy 3 or 2. And I was like, and it's like because we made that topic up on the spot, I was just kind of spitballing. You were spitballing. We were just kind of throwing out
making it up,
stuff that was on. Now I'm like going back and I'm like, I have a lot more favorite. But the thing is, and that may be a future topic on its own because I could probably spend 2 hours talking about all of my favorite Final Fantasy songs. I just have to, make some notes first to prepare it a little better. So this time, guess what, guys? We made some notes.
We actually have structured content.
Yeah. So, because we did mention maybe a little bit last time. I think last time we were like, oh, Ocarina of Time versus Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
That was like the big, heated debate, which one was better. And I said, oh, we should save that for another thing. And here it is, kind of. It evolved into best video games in general of all time because it's like, and we're going to get to this a little bit later, but the whole debate over Final Fantasy VII versus Ocarina of Time is a very specific topic from a very specific time. There are many eras of video games where people have considered certain video games best of all time, and there are a few games that are still considered the best of all time that are from a long time ago. We're going to talk all about that today on today's episode of RichCast. Cue the intro card that, if we were doing this on OBS, I'd, press it, and it would be remember the lightning RichCast?
Oh, yeah.
I have, an actual, title card for RichCast that we used maybe once. But I think you can actually put graphics in what is this,
what?
Prism?
Prism Live, yeah.
I'll have to send you the thing. But how do you activate it? How do you,
That's a great question.
Or can you only set it to start?
I'll have to check and see if I have to pay for the premium version of this. But either way, since we're doing it on the fly, low budget, welcome back to RichCast, flashy graphic.
So, before we begin, just remember to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us in the YouTube algorithm. And if for whatever reason you showed up and you're not subscribed, subscribe,
And guess what?
What are you doing?
We said it, so you have to be subscribed to the channel for 1 minute before you can chat
that's
in the
very
live
clever,
chat.
Chris. Right. Yeah,
so you get a 1 minute cooldown, but hey, you can chat in the live chat.
That's right. So in order to comment, you must be a subscriber. I think that's brilliant.
But if you're watching this, you probably are already subscribed, unless you got a new YouTube channel, but I expect most of you guys are subscribed if you're watching us at this time, at this hour.
Yeah.
Anyway, without further ado,
Okay.
Rich, you have a structure of how you'd like to
I wrote
to do
notes,
this.
you know.
got notes.
So the whole thing is, I wanted to talk about the best video games of all time and kind of start them out in their eras and kind of talk about a little bit of prefacing each one with what was going on in the video game industry at the time. So the way that I've described this to Chris is we're going to be talking about the best video games of all time through the lens of some video game history, because I think that it's really important. Now, we're not really going to be talking about the 1970s, because, you know, I don't know, is someone out there's favorite video game still Pong or something, then...
You know, it was kind of funny. I was looking at Kevin's comment about our games are our one desire. So basically, we're going to sing that song and end the stream. Pong Defender, Space Invader, Centipede, Pac-Man, Ultima, Frogger, Pitfall Adventure.
That's a good
Pole Defender,
callback.
Donkey Kong.
I mean, we're going to be talking about some of those things.
But you're like, oh no, this time we got a lot more to talk about. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, it's good callback. Good callback. Okay, so we're going to start out by talking for just very briefly about the video game crash of 1983. And this is why I think this is important, because throughout, you know, the 70s and even still throughout much of the 80s, and of course today, you can still go to arcades. Video game arcades were king. If you wanted to play Donkey Kong, you couldn't play it at home. You had to go to a video arcade, you know, and you put quarters in and play Donkey Kong. You know, that was the Mario experience at the time, was, you know, playing Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, all of the other wide array of video game arcades. So when the video game market, you know, became a thing, the home market, you know, people were buying it up like crazy, and you had, like, you know, everyone and their mom making a new video game console, and, you know, Atari 2800, you know, that was still like the bigger thing. But even so, what happened was it got saturated and saturated and saturated until the entire market, at least in North America, it was a little different in Japan, but the entire market in America crashed. If you look up video game crash of 1983, you can get a whole wall of information about it. That's where the jokes came from, where you can find like 1 million copies of E.T. for the Atari, like in a landfill. It's like, because the demand had subsided. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone's like, oh, I got this and this and this and this, and you started to, they lost quality control. There was too many off-brands, and it became a disaster until the interest in the home video game market, you know, it really just, you know, took a long dump, literally and metaphorically.
Because it was in a landfill.
Because it was in a landfill. And, you know, arcade became king again. And it's not like the video game market didn't really hit arcades that hard at the time either. But it's like, if you wanted a quality video game, the graphics on those early video game home consoles could not compare to anything in the arcade. And honestly, it would be years before home video games could compare to arcades anyway, because arcade cabinets are individual computers running individual games, and they can run all kinds of crazy graphics, you know. So anyways, what does all of that mean? The reason why I specify that is because anything before the video game crash is kind of like it's not just a different era, it's a completely different, like, life almost, you know. So we're not going to be talking about any video games before the crash of 1983, because there was this little bit of a lull period, and then Nintendo strikes back with the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in America in 1985 with Super Mario Brothers. And all of a sudden, you had to own a video game console again, because this was a game not available in an arcade. And, you know, even though its graphics still couldn't quite match some of the arcade games at the time, the original Super Mario Brothers game did something incredibly innovative with the way that you progress through the levels and the way that you go after, you know, Bowser, and it's, you know, the platforming and the way that it worked. You know, it was something like, oh, I got to have this at home. This is something that I absolutely have to have at home. It's, you know, and of course became a huge, huge seller. You know, people, you know, if you hadn't thrown away your Atari 2800, it was in the trash by the time the Nintendo came along. You know?
Makes sense.
So I would say that the first thing on our list as what would be considered the best video game of all time at that time, the original Super Mario Brothers was immediately considered the best video game of all time.
The GOAT.
In 1985. And again, I can't stress this enough, but Mario had been around since 1981 in arcade cabinets when you played Donkey Kong. So it's not like he originated in 1985. So anybody who says that Mario came out in 1985, including Nintendo, which is confused for some reason.
Because they're doing the 40th anniversary
Yeah, it's the
right
40th
now
anniversary,
of Super Mario.
hyphen, asterisks, like, Super Mario Bros. On the NES came out in 1985, so it's the 40th anniversary. But Mario has been around since 1981. And in fact, there was another arcade game called Super Mario Bros. Mario that was in 1983's arcade.
Yes, and I remember when the Game Boy Advance kind of re-released all those, they put that on there and you could do a link up, but it was multiplayer where you had to hop on like Koopa shells and you could level up. It was good times, but yes, good game.
Yeah. So anyways, Mario Bros. Was the first one, is the first game that I think that could legitimately called, because there had been enough history at that point too, that you could say, oh, this is the best video game of all time in 1983. And then throughout the NES years, of course, we got everything that NES had to offer, including, Zelda and everything else. And, you could say, oh, it was the original Zelda also, but, like, it was a little too soon. I think people had Mario fever back then, and Zelda was just, like, a little nice companion piece to everything else you own on your NES, At least that was my experience. Like, I remember back when I was a little kid, people liked Legend of Zelda, but they weren't like, they were like, oh, but Mario was like the big thing. And like Zelda was the thing that you did if you were alone at your uncle's house and you needed to kill 3 hours. So you put on Zelda to go through all the dungeons and everything. Anyway,
I do think, though, as time went on, retrospectively, some would have considered, it was very much a
yeah,
game
after the fact, we're like, oh, look at how many things that Zelda did, and blippity bloppity bloop. And we don't talk about Zelda 2. So, anyways, moving on.
Did you see Sam's comment?
No, what?
Sam said, I got Mario fever.
Oh. Indeed. Don't worry, Adam. We're going to get to Ocarina of Time. We're going through the years here. We're still in 1985.
We're going by era.
But we're about to move on. So the year was 1990, and the Super Nintendo had come out, and we got Super Mario World, which was, after Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3, then we got World, we got Yoshi, we got, all the different islands and the big Bowser battle. And to me, we got a Super Chat. I wasn't going to say anything about Super Chats till 20 minutes in, because that's our tradition. But thank you, LinkNerd09. Thank you for Super Chatting, saying Twilight Princess on the Wii is #1 for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Link Nerd. And I will say this, I remember the anticipation going from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, all the way to Twilight Princess. So that big gap of the early to mid 2000s, there was so much hype and build-up. There's a famous video for Twilight Princess where, I don't know if it's Reggie, but it's somebody either at E3 or Space World when they're finishing announcing everything, and they're like, before we go, we got one more thing we want to show you. And there's that famous thing of people going, oh my gosh. So I do remember the hype. And I remember thinking, like, Zelda Twilight Princess looks like Lord of the Rings. So great choice. Very good game. And thank you for the super chat.
And I guess the problem with trying to go in order in year to year is people are going to be like, oh, what about this? What about this? It's like, well, we haven't gotten to that yet.
But feel free if anybody else wants to.
Because remember, we're doing best video games and kind of in the history of when the games came out, because I think it adds a nice perspective. But thank you, LinkNerd09. And since LinkNerd09 was the first one to super chat, we'll just do our super chat announcement now. So if you would like to super chat, just the Rich Alvarez rules are you can super chat anything you want as long as it's relevant to what we're talking about, or at least relevant to Chris and I.
Semi-relevant.
If you want to talk about your favorite episode of Super Mario Bros., we won't stop you, but try to keep it about video games and best video games. What's your favorite video game of all time? Super chat anytime. Chris and I will stop whatever we're talking about to answer your super chat.
It's true.
Even if we're talking about something incredibly important, we will drop everything and answer your super chat.
Dems the rules.
To give you the shout out that you deserve. Anyways, so we were talking about Super Mario World, which was huge.
Very
and
big,
the Super Nintendo was huge. There was a little bit of, I remember at the time, there's a little bit of guff from parents because they didn't understand what would eventually become a very normal practice of a new system overtaking the old system.
We have to buy a new system.
Yeah, they're like, there's tons of videos you can find. People are like, I can't believe that Nintendo is putting out a new one. I've already bought my kid 20 games for the NES,
It's that meme where it's like, Mom, I want to get the new Mario game. We got the Mario game at home. And it's like the game the kid wants want Super Mario World, Mario at Home. It's like the first one.
Yeah, it's like, and it was like, that was something, because remember, computers were very new, and we, we hadn't even gotten Windows 95 yet.
True.
So people didn't really understand this whole,
Upgrade to get new stuff.
what is it, the turn and burn?
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, planned obsolescence was what I was thinking of. Obviously that had kind of always existed for cars, but not as bad because cars were made better back in the day.
It's true.
Now it's like, you're lucky if your Ford F-150 lasts 5 years.
I was going to say you're lucky if your phone
But
lasts
the
2
mistake
years.
that you made was buying a Ford. Toyota, not a sponsor.
I thought you were going to be like, not a sponsor? Don't want them either. Actually, that would be a cool sponsor. I take that back.
I was going to say, Chris, if Nintendo or if Toyota wanted to sponsor us, you better believe we'd be selling out faster than.
We didn't sell out. We bought in. Anyway, back to gaming.
Yeah, so it was 1990 Super Mario World, and that I think could have even been considered at that point, at least in my opinion, that was my favorite game for a while. And then. The Sega Genesis, we talked a little bit before the stream.
True.
The Sega Genesis has already been around for a while, and, Sega systems hadn't really performed that well in the United States until 1991, and Sonic the Hedgehog came out, and then they started selling Genesis consoles with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Very smart.
And it started, like, Sega would eventually do this thing in the early 90s where it would catch up to Nintendo, and for like a whole year and a half, be ahead of Nintendo, and then Sega made a whole bunch of mistakes. There's a lot of great documentaries you can watch on that. But for a lot of people, Sonic the Hedgehog at that time was the greatest game of all time. And then in 1992, we got Mortal Kombat, which would then start the debate. The first real, like, what I would call video game debate. The Sonic thing was a fun one, and obviously for years people were like, oh, is it Sonic or Mario? Because Sega does what Nintendo don't, which is really stupid. But, yes, Nintendo don't go out of business.
True.
So anyways, Mortal Kombat came out, and then it sparked that debate of which is the better fighter.
Now,
is it Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter?
Would you consider the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo the first console war?
That is actually considered the first console war. It's just funny because for the first few years of that, it was by a landslide. Super Nintendo was selling way more. It wasn't until Sonic that then Sega started getting attention. But then, okay, I'll jump ahead a little bit with Sega by just saying that when they started doing stuff like, Sega CD and all of the add-ons where, then your Genesis is becoming like a block because you've got all the add-ons. People would spend a ton of money on all this Sega Genesis add-on content. So that way, by the time the Sega Saturn came out, everyone's like, well, why would I buy a Sega Saturn? I just spent a ton of money upgrading my Genesis. And just like, so the Saturn didn't really sell very well, and people missed awesome games on the Saturn like Prancer Dragoon. and it's just ridiculous. And then Sega went into debt to fund the Dreamcast, and then the PS2 killed the Dreamcast, and then, Sega doesn't make consoles anymore. But it's their fault. Because they their head got too in the clouds, and they got too egotistical, and they thought they were invincible, and they weren't invincible. Anyways, there's great documentaries on that subject. But anyways, back to games.
So sorry, continue. You're leading this somewhere. So we just did which era are we at?
We're in the early 90s now. So I was talking about Mortal Kombat.
Right.
And then
Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter.
Now, over the course from, 1987 to at this point, we've had Final Fantasy games, but none of them had made the cultural impact that Square wanted them to. The first game sold really well in Japan, but they had really failed to sell that great in America. So in 1994, they released Final Fantasy VI. It was released in America as Final Fantasy III.
Right, because the naming was different.
Because, again, by the time the first Final Fantasy game came to America, it was 1990. And so it had already been out in Japan for a few years. So we'd already had Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III. So they released, so they then released in, I think, 91 in America, Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV became Final Fantasy II in America, because again, 2 and 3 didn't come out in America initially. And then they skipped 5, and so Final Fantasy VI came to America as Final Fantasy III. regardless, whether it was whatever it was being called, it was the first time that it had like a lot of success in America. Not the super amazing success that we'll talk about later with Final Fantasy VII, of course, but it did have a lot of success in America. And I remember playing Final Fantasy VI, but it was 3, you know. And I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. And it was only a year later after that that we then got Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo.
Now we are in a super contention for greatest
right.
of all time.
So come Chrono Trigger in 1995, this is the first game we're going to talk about today that is still a contender for best video game today. So I want you to think about that for a little bit, because we're only like 20 odd years into real video games at this point, and Chrono Trigger comes out in 95, and people are still talking about Chrono Trigger today. I actually just watched somebody's incredible video essay that they made just last week about like Chrono Trigger, and it's how it stood the test of time.
I mean, that was one of Matt Pat's first videos too, where he was talking all about his theories on Chrono Trigger. So I mean, he obviously was impacted by that as well.
Chrono Trigger, and I'll just say this because most people know, Chrono Trigger is my favorite video game of all time. What we're talking about today is best video games today. Or best video games of all time. Not favorite video games. And I do think that there is a fundamental difference between what is best and what is favorite. Because favorite, your bias is in it. You might have nostalgia. You might have stories and etc. So whatever is your favorite doesn't necessarily mean it's your best. Again, we talked about Citizen Kane.
Due to the film comparison.
Like, really Citizen Kane might be the best movie of all time, but it's sure not my favorite.
The joke is that Citizen Kane is the best movie of all time, but Casablanca is everybody's favorite, at least back in the snooty film critic days. So
right.
I think, and to kind of play on that, the reason, again, if you guys ever took like film history classes, very briefly, it's not just about how good the movie is, it's how big of an impact it made on the entire industry too. So there are things that happen like, did it do something groundbreaking or paradigm shifting that had never been done before that then affected the entire industry? Right. So with that said, I think one of the things that's special about Chrono Trigger, and I'm sure you would probably talk about this, is this was at the very end of the life cycle of the Super Nintendo, right?
It was.
So some would say it was literally pushing 2D animation and 2D sprites and the 16-bit. That's like to the limit, because there had been multiple years of game development.
It would like it was definitely pushing the Super Nintendo to its absolute fullest. And I mean, it's still, I mean, like, I get chills just talking about it, because and what makes it great? I mean, there's a lot to debate there, of course, but for me, it's like, it's the characters, it's the story. I feel like it does time travel right, and you know, it has such an amazing backdrop, and the way that it tells its story. It's kind of impossible to talk about without getting into the philosophy of it and everything else. But like, it's an incredible game. Everybody deserves to play Chrono Trigger. Whether or not you will is up to you. You know,
I've never played it. Someday can I get the Rich Alvarez commentary version?
You know, I think I've tried maybe in the past to do like, but the thing is,
how long does it take to play that game all the way through? Like, we talking like 30, 40,
about
50
30
hours?
30 probably, okay. Realistically, especially like doing like a screen capture like that where I'm explaining as I go, to maybe 30. I could beat the game probably in 20, 25 hours, but for a
commentary,
stream, yeah, and talking about it, it would take longer. But it is an amazing game, and yeah, someday we will do a full playthrough, not in one sitting.
Yeah, Khan says, Rich Alvarez Chrono Trigger, let's play when? I was literally thinking the same thing.
Right.
But I guess what is special about Chrono Trigger is it is the end of the SNES life cycle. So like I said, we're pushing the hardware to the limits. It's got some of the best music in all of gaming, and it was Nobu, right? So the famous...
Yeah, well, it was actually two. It was Nobuo Uematsu from Final Fantasy did a lot of the music for the game, and he had another person, and forgive me, I forget the second composer. There's another composer, too, that did a lot, and then they would go on to make a lot of successful video game soundtracks later as well.
It's funny. That's how it is in Nintendo, too, because I always think of Koji Kondo, but there's another guy that is like the second guy in command that did the Mario Kart music and some of the Animal Crossing music, and I always forget his name, but it's another situation like that where it's the second guy you forget about that has some of the greatest tunes.
Well, because you have to remember, the reason why there was a lot of these combinations, Chris, is because they considered this, at the time, like Square Soft at the time was trying to make this the best video game of all time. So like the development team literally called themselves the Dream Team.
Whoa.
Because it was Hirobu Sakaguchi, who had created Final Fantasy, and Akira, who had created Dragon Ball.
Oh, that's right.
I
I totally forgot about this. The dude that made Dragon Ball. That's why the artwork looks like
that's
Dragon
why,
Ball.
that's why it looks like Dragon Ball. And he had done Dragon Quest as well. So it's like they got Hirobu, they got Akira, they got Naboo, and they got this other guy too, which I forget his name. And then there was like a few other people. They picked people from like all over the place to kind of come together to make one game. So we often forget about that. Oh, we have to drop everything we're doing, because LinkNerd09 has super chatted and says, I also petition for you to play more games live. Thank you. Well, of course, the one that I would really love to play live is Minecraft, but every time I've done that in the past, nobody watches. Sad face.
Thank you very much, Link Nerd. And I agree. I actually would like to do more gaming live streams. So depending on how things go, maybe we'll mix it up. We'll do a little Minecraft, do some Chrono Trigger. But of course, as we're going on and talking about more best games of all time, we'll probably be like, oh, we got to play this one too. But I got to say, when it comes to these really long, complicated RPGs, I've never played a Final Fantasy game all the way through. I actually enjoy watching you play it because it's more fun to get Oh, hey, Scott's in the chat. Scott Otter.
Hey, Scott, we were talking favorably about you in our last stream about how awesome you are. So I hope you caught that
Saying
at some point.
Good things about you behind your back.
Great, Scott.
But anyway, I guess long story short, thank you very much, LinkNerd09. We very much appreciate it. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get some more Rich Alvarez gaming live streams.
Moving on, Scott, we are about to get into the late 90s. Actually, we're getting into the late 90s now. We're doing best games of all time, but we're kind of going through the eras
all the console
here.
eras,
So
yeah.
we just got done talking about like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger. Now we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina. GoldenEye is not on my list, but I will say that at the
Honorable
time,
mention.
GoldenEye 64 was an incredible game. Tried to play it again a few years ago. Does not hold up.
I've heard if you play it with a mouse and key, or a mouse and keyboard, there's modded versions that are really good. But a real quick comment on GoldenEye, it did do some groundbreaking stuff for multiplayer, and I think that the people who played Halo were very much influenced by GoldenEye, so it was groundbreaking for first. Okay.
Oh no, I'm just laughing because of Sam's comments. Say like Rich and Chris are like, oh yeah, RPGs. Holy shit, Scott!
Okay, actually, that's a pretty good point.
Because it's like we see Scott and we're woo.
You're like, forget everything I've said up to this point.
Yeah.
We're now changing the stream to greatest RMA cast members of all time.
And it's Scott.
And it's Scott. Stream over.
Sorry, continue.
Oh yeah. So long story short, I would say what's unique about GoldenEye, and I know that we're jumping ahead a little bit, but it would be in one of those kind of affected the industry because many games would then look back to it, because I'm pretty sure that Halo was influenced by it. With that said,
we have to stop everything we're doing because somebody super chatted, and Mr. Spanglish Coffee, ooh, great name, says, good evening, Richard and Chris. Missed you guys since the last stupid Mario series. Here's to support the channel. Thank you, Mr. Spanglish Coffee. Excellent name. And thank you for super chatting. And remember, when you super chat, we have to stop everything we're doing to pay attention to you. So, Mr. Spanglish Coffee, we thank you.
Thank you. And I love the name. Is Spanglish Coffee an actual coffee you can order?
No, but it reminds me of the movie Spanglish with Adam Sandler.
I've never actually
like
seen
Spanish and English.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I was thinking maybe it's like a secret item menu, like how In-N-Out has secret items. Like maybe Starbucks has the Spanglish Coffee.
What would be the Spanglish Coffee though?
I don't know.
We'll invent
We'll have
it.
to ask. I was going to say that
you were saying we'd have to ask. I was
ask.
Saying, we'll invent
I like
it.
it. That's even better.
Let's create the and we'll do a whole video on how to make it.
Welcome back to another Rich Cook stream. Today we're making Spanglish Coffee, which doesn't exist until now.
All right, Chris, are you done waxing poetic about GoldenEye? Because I have things to say.
Yes, please continue.
Sorry. Anyways, now we're getting to what I would consider the first set of meat and potatoes in this, which is now Final Fantasy VII versus Ocarina of Time. This is the thing that inspired the whole stream.
Which inspired the whole stream, and when we were talking about whether or not we could clip this into a short, if you guys saw a lot of our shorts and clips this week from last week's live stream, you said there was so much more that could have been said. So, Rich, take it away.
Yeah, but also I just want to say the reason why we decided to do this longer thing is because I wanted to acknowledge games that came before, and obviously we're older, so we do have some biases, but there are a ton of games that came later that are considered the best. We're going to get to that. But right now, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to be talking about why this was such a huge deal. One, Final Fantasy VII was originally supposed to be on the Nintendo 64, but then Nintendo, like they kind of had a habit of doing back in the 90s, changed their console plans at the last minute and decided that the Nintendo 64 was going to be a cartridge system again instead of a CD system. This created two major problems. One, cartridges don't have enough memory for large games. Two, that doesn't have enough fidelity for large games. And three, cartridges are really expensive. And expensive because of the way that they're constructed. And anytime somebody made a game for Nintendo 64, it usually costs about $50 or $60. You have to pay Nintendo $30 to use their cartridges. Versus a CD, which costs about 10 cents. So...
And an interesting trivia fact at this time, for those of you that have ever looked at old Nintendo defunct add-ons, there very briefly was something called the Nintendo 64 disk drive that was a CD-based add-on for the 64 that you popped the whole entire console on top of. It was only released in Japan. There were a few rando games that came out on it, and one of them was Animal Crossing on the 64, back then known as Animal Forest, which we then got as Animal Crossing GameCube. But long story short, Final Fantasy VII was going to be on the 64 because
what eventually became the 64, because they were developing it, because again, I said they switched to a cartridge-based system at the last minute. Originally, the next Nintendo system, which wasn't called the 64 at the time, they hadn't had a name for it at the time, but it originally was supposed to handle CDs. Now, Nintendo had never done CDs before, so they hired a little company called Sony to develop a disk drive for a Nintendo system. Now,
and there's prototypes of the controller. It either says like Nintendo
PlayStation, yeah,
or Sony. It's trippy that one leaked a few years ago.
So they were working.
It exists.
Yeah, they were working on the Nintendo PlayStation, and here's the mistake they made. Nintendo thought they could back out, and all the companies would just be like, "Yeah, we'll switch." But not Square, because Square was already in the middle of making what would become the most expensive game of all time. Thank you, Scott Otter, for saying, wow, the N64 really hurt Rich in his childhood. No, okay, I'm going to get to all the things I love about the Nintendo 64 in just a minute, but thank you, Scott.
That was great, Scott. Thank you.
Anyways, so Nintendo... it was easy for them to pull out because, Sony and Nintendo were going to, like, split profits, and I don't remember exactly what it was, and I don't think I've ever had all the information about it. But Nintendo decided that either they were going to do it cheaper and they didn't want to give 50% or whatever to Sony, so then they went to Philips. And that's why eventually a lot of weird Nintendo games went to the Philips CDI, because they already made a deal with Philips, and so Nintendo games had to go there. Thank you, LinkNerd09, who says, oh boy, I can't wait to buy some Dodongos. Thank you, LinkNerd09.
Thank you, Leak Nerd.
So, Sony felt really jilted.
Because they had spent a ton of time and money investing in this,
it was their research department that had developed this disk drive for games. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? Because, at that time, Sony was mostly, radios and CD players. So they're like, well, we've already spent all this money to make this console, and we made it all ourselves. So I guess we could just take Nintendo's name off of it. And ergo, there's the Sony PlayStation, which, since Nintendo had backed off and given up all license to it, Sony could just release it at their own. Nintendo created their biggest enemy, still to this day. Really crazy to think about.
It is wild.
I'm actually so glad, for a lot of reasons, that we do have the Sony PlayStation, because I am a Sony fan. I have a PS5. I've had every Sony console, including a Portal,
Oh, yeah, and obviously, in this situation, I will say, even though you can look in hindsight and say, man, what kind of world would we live in if it was the alternate timeline where it was the Nintendo PlayStation? But the competition is good, and here's a classic example very briefly. Nintendo didn't put a headphone jack on the Game Boy Advance until Sony came out with the PlayStation Portable, and then as soon as the DS came out, Nintendo was like, whoa, we got competition? Let's put that headphone jack right back in there. So Nintendo, we love Nintendo, but them not putting a regular auxiliary cord headphone jack on the Game Boy Advance when there was one on the Game Boy Color, but they didn't put it on the Game Boy Advance, and they put it back on the DS when the PSP came out. Let's just say that Sony giving them a little bit of competition made sure that Nintendo got off their lazy butt and gave us good quality products.
Right.
You guys know I'm a Nintendo diehard fanboy, but I just want to say I'm glad Sony exists.
So anyways, but here's the problem. Again, Nintendo thought everybody would just be like, okay, we'll switch to console. Or we'll switch to cartridge. That didn't really work for everyone. And we could go into Konami and Capcom too, which eventually just went full PlayStation as well.
Yeah.
And those were primarily, developers for Nintendo. Crazy how Nintendo lost a lot of business. But Square particularly was already making the most expensive game of all time with Final Fantasy VII. And at the time, and it would be a while till it got top, but at the time, that was the most expensive game of all time. And they were already like 35% into it when Nintendo was like, oh, so they were like, okay, we've already been developing for the CD. If we pull out now, like what they were doing, and now we've seen what Final Fantasy VII is, there's no way. I mean, it had to be on what? 3 CDs. Eventually, Final Fantasy VIII was on 4. 3 CDs worth of data. There was no way you were going to get that on an N64 cartridge, and just the scale of the game and the quality and the music and everything. They were like, we would have to nerf this game so bad to fit it on a cartridge, and also Square was not interested in giving Nintendo 50% of every, they're like, again, I think Sony actually cut Square a lot of deals too to get them, like they gave them the PlayStation developer kit for free.
Smart.
And they were like, yeah, join us. And I think Sony, and that's why you'll notice that unlike every other Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy VII specifically has the Sony Computer Entertainment logo on it next to Square, as if they're a co-publisher, because they didn't even charge them the 10 cents per CD. Sony paid for the CDs, and Sony gave them a lot of free promotion, too, because they were like, oh, don't worry, oh, Nintendo hurt you, come here,
Smart.
And they took advantage of that.
And briefly, we should mention, what did Nintendo go and do? You kind of talked about this very briefly. What was it, the Nintendo CDI Philips thing?
So,
where we get a lot of weird YouTube poops from if you paid attention.
So basically what happened was a lot of companies, including Nintendo, when they switched over to Philips, ultimately Nintendo decided just to do cartridges, but they already made a deal with Philips where Philips had some share of Nintendo. So what they did was they released a bunch of crappy Nintendo games on the Philips CDI, which included the infamous "Now Link, my boy," like the weird Zelda games
around here. Yeah, all the weird Zelda stuff from 2009. If you were on
actually,
YouTube
that's
then.
an important transition for what we're going to be talking about next.
Oh, good.
So they realized at Nintendo that Final Fantasy VII was going to be huge and that it was going to literally sell PlayStations, and that's exactly what it did. So Nintendo, you could even see it there with like the CDI stuff. They had kind of thrown Zelda to the wind. They didn't really think much of Zelda at that time. Like the last couple Zelda games hadn't sold as good. Like the original Zelda had sold good. A Link to the Past had sold good, but like I think Nintendo was kind of in a state where they're like, well, we're just give them Zelda. People like they had the Zelda Saturday morning cartoon, and they were like, oh, we'll get to the next Zelda when we feel like it. But when they realized that Final Fantasy VII was going to be so huge, they're like, oh, what fantasy game do we own? What fantasy game do we own? Oh, we own Zelda. So then they decided they were going to put a ton of money into developing what they would say a Final Fantasy killer. It wouldn't kill it, but it would be Ocarina of Time.
I didn't realize that. So what you're saying is Nintendo going all in on Ocarina of Time was a direct competition because they knew Final Fantasy VII was going to sell consoles like crazy.
Like you said, in a different universe where Final Fantasy VII comes out on the Nintendo PlayStation, there is no Ocarina of Time.
Whoa.
Because what are they competing with? Themselves?
True.
So
that's an interesting
We
take.
would have eventually gotten another Zelda game. It just wouldn't quite have been Ocarina of Time. You know what I mean? Ocarina of Time is a reaction to Nintendo knowing that Final Fantasy VII will sell. There was another company there still, though. Again, we're talking about the dying Sega.
But all of them were deceived, for there was another.
So
just the way you
I
said
talk
it.
about was it Prancer Dragoon Saga, or I think that's what it's called on the Saturn. That was supposed to be their Final Fantasy VII killer. Oh, it only sold like 100,000 units.
The only thing I even remember from the Sega Dreamcast is
I was talking about Saturn. I was talking about Saturn, not even the Dreamcast.
Oh. Okay.
We haven't gotten to
We
the
haven't gotten there
Dreamcast
yet.
We're
I'm
talking
jumping
about
ahead.
Sega
Sorry.
Saturn, man.
Good
See,
call.
this is the thing that Chris was going to skip the Saturn completely anyway.
See, I don't even remember.
Nobody
it.
had a Sega Saturn.
Rewind. So what was
So,
this game you
remember,
said?
It's Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, PS1, Sega Saturn.
Ah, right.
PS2, GameCube, Dreamcast.
Right.
Those are the
You're right.
generations. So, but Saturn didn't sell very well, and so their Final Fantasy Killer didn't sell very well. Lancer, Prancer, Dragon. I forget exactly what it's called. It's Prancer, Dragoon Saga Legacy. I don't know. Somebody tell me. Anyways. Woo! So
we do have to get back to what makes Final Fantasy VII versus Ocarina of Time, why they're
Right.
still considered the greatest.
yeah, sorry, I went into way more details than I thought I would on the history of why those even are things. But
That
I
was
think
good.
it's important.
I didn't know that.
That's the whole point.
I
We're
did not
doing-
know that Ocarina of Time was a direct response to Nintendo knowing they lost Final Fantasy VII, so they had to have what would be considered by many still one of the greatest games, if not the greatest game of all time.
And really, it really just, I think that the actual competition can be boiled down to this. Did both games sold really well? Now I'm wishing I'd actually gotten those figures on which one actually sold better. Well, you can't because your phone's there.
It's all
Chris,
good.
talk for a minute while I look this up.
So as Rich is looking this up, I will say this. So I have never played Final Fantasy VII, but I will say this. Growing up, I was immersed in just hearing so many people talk about it. Like, you just absorbed it culturally. In fact, I was thinking about this. For those of you that were on the internet before YouTube took off, there were websites like Newgrounds where there was a lot of Flash animation that was really, really popular. And what I noticed is Flash animation websites did a lot of stuff about Zelda, specifically Ocarina of Time, and a lot of stuff about Final Fantasy. So even though I never played Final Fantasy VII, I was just bombarded with fan edits and fan content. So even in the early... So this is like 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. I'd call it the peak of Flash animation. Everybody was talking about Final Fantasy VII, Ocarina Arena. Now back to Rich.
So, and I just wanted to point out Sam's comment of Sega. Can't think of it without doing that. If you're a child of the time, then you know. So again, Ocarina of Time was supposed to be the Final Fantasy VII killer. It wasn't, but it is considered, if it's not one of your favorites, it is at least considered like a darling of the N64 for sure. And I think the debate really came about because, especially even as you get into the 2000s, this debate was still going on because it really almost became a weird Nintendo versus Sony thing, I think, where it's like, we both have these amazing big games. And if you were a Nintendo fan, you were going to go with Ocarina. If you were a Sony fan, you were going to go with Final Fantasy VII, and like, what was the better game? Again, I've already said my opinion. I love Ocarina of Time to death, but Final Fantasy VII won that for me. Because let's take a look at some stats.
Okay. So you've looked up which one sold more.
Total sales, Final Fantasy VII, the original. Again, we're not talking about
remakes.
Just the original 1997 game sold over 15 million copies, which is huge. That's
Really big back
the
then.
biggest. Ocarina of Time was 7.6 million copies.
Whoa! So it doubled.
So
in
Final Fantasy
sales.
VII was roughly double.
I would never have guessed that. I would have guessed it would have been
Yeah,
flipped.
well, we didn't have back in those days, we didn't have Google or Wikipedia or whatever. So now we can conveniently look up the actual stats. So basically, it was like a 2-to-1 ratio.
That's really
so.
impressive.
For every 2 copies of Final Fantasy VII sold, you sold a copy of Ocarina of Time, which makes sense because I feel like by the late 90s, especially, if you had a Nintendo 64, like that was your console, and if you had a PS1, that was your console. The next generation would get even crazier, though, where the PS2 became, and I think still is, the biggest selling console of all time.
Potentially, yeah.
Really crazy
now,
stuff.
Before we jump into that, did you want to expand on what made Final Fantasy VII such a unique game, and what made Ocarina of Time such a unique game? Because even today, in current year, 2025,
Here's the thing,
many people still consider those two as the greatest games of all time.
I mean,
and there's so much you could say for each one. So I was wondering, did you want to touch base, what did Final Fantasy VII do that hadn't been done before? Why does it? I mean, what do you want? There's the plot, There's like, I don't want to spoil, but the huge impact of certain characters dying. No spoilers, but you know,
I know it is. It is those
the
things.
music,
like it really rips your heart out. And then puts it back in, and does a lot of cool. Like there's again, if you've never played Final Fantasy VII, then play it. But because even though it's old, and I usually do the thing where like, well, if it's been a long time, I'm still not going to spoil any details for you. But I'll say this: the game gets into psychology, philosophy, like ecological disturbances, geographical disturbances, a little bit of theology. Actually, a lot of theology by the end of the game. Metaphors. Really makes you think.
I gotta read Scott's comment. Rich just prefers Final Fantasy because he never won Epona. Time.
Oh, Scott remembers me and Scott racing.
Hanging out trying to. Long story short, several years ago we were hanging out with Scott and we were all trying to beat that and we couldn't do it as adults. It was kind of funny.
Man, yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. So
But anyway, so what you were saying is it hit a lot of themes.
Yeah.
And I had another theory on that, Rich. I know that it's not that Final Fantasy is an anime, but it feels like an anime. And I would say there were probably a lot of Americans who had never been exposed to anime storytelling before. And that was kind of their first introduction to something that was anime adjacent with a really, really, really good plot.
Well, I will say this. It's like maybe the reason why it might remind you of anime a little bit, Chris, is because it is a very Japanese game.
Yeah. It's got that same cultural
and
feel to it.
and Tetsuya designing the characters in kind of a very anime-esque sort of style. It's just great. The whole game is fantastic, start to finish. That's what makes the remakes a little frustrating for me. Is like I can't just go to the end of it. I have to wait till the third part comes out or whatever.
Yeah. Now,
but
it did other things, which is Final Fantasy VII. In a sense, was it the first. Because what makes a game greatest of all time isn't just the game in and of itself, it's the impact it has on the industry. After Final Fantasy VII comes out, it basically set the bar for what people expected in a 3D RPG, right?
Yes. I mean, that's the blessing and the curse of Final Fantasy VII, is that it's not just all Final Fantasy games, all video game RPGs, at least JRPGs,
are measured against that.
It's like, is it as good as Final Fantasy VII? Well, I mean, no.
And you even talked about how Final Fantasy VIII, I remember you telling me this, that because 7 is lucky number 7, it's a famous number, a lot of people didn't even know that there was Final Fantasies 1 through 6.
Because of the mistitling before, too. Yeah, so people kind of thought, like, oh, is this the first one? Because,
And when Final Fantasy VIII came out, you said people were upset because they were expecting
so many people,
7 Part 2.
Yeah, so many people's first Final Fantasy was 7. So when 8 came out and it was like Squall in the gang, they were like, oh, where's Cloud? And I was like slapping my face.
And the other thing I would mention, Rich, just to show how iconic 7 is, every freaking tech demo for every single PlayStation showed Cloud jumping off the train at the train station, right? Which and which game are they remaking? Final Fantasy VII. That's the one that so I guess Final Fantasy is so special because again, I've never even played it, but it was such an immersive thing that hit every angle of what made a game amazing. Years later, we're still talking about it. It's still being remade. It's used in tech demos. Like Sephiroth is one of the greatest video game villains of all time. You can just hear
definitely
his
spooky
theme song. So
yeah,
so I guess they really captured lightning in a bottle.
Oh, we didn't mention that in our best Final Fantasy songs thing either.
How could I not forget the Sephiroth? See, that's the thing.
We should have. It's got to be its own thing.
We're gonna have to do a stream where literally we just go through every single. Yeah, but I guess my point is sometimes there's a game that's hitting everything. It's one of the best stories ever told. Some of the greatest music ever made. It was groundbreaking in that it's the PlayStation 1, so it's many people's first introduction to 3D. And again, it's setting a bar that every single JRPG is measured to. So that's why it's really hard to really express the legacy. But Final Fantasy VII really is the RPG that every RPG is going to be compared to, like, forever, basically.
Yes.
Is that a good way to put it?
Absolutely.
I haven't even played the game.
Remakes. And again, other games get remakes, which are really like remasters, right? Most of these so-called remakes are actually just remasterings where it's the same game, but just like with a new fresh coat of paint, and that's fine. That works for me on a lot of levels for a lot of these games. But not only is like this a true remake in that it's rebuilt from the ground up, they're adding more time, more games, more story, more little character interactions, and in some cases, new characters in there too. This isn't just a remake, it's a reimagining.
Yeah.
And now, Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I was going to say, now we got to talk
Which
about
got
Ocarina of
one
Time.
okay port for the 3DS, and then other than that, they really need to re-release it again.
They need to do Ocarina of Time like fully remastered.
They're doing Ocarina dirty.
We got. I mean, there's been ports of it. There's obviously the GameCube had a port of it. The 3DS kind of, sort of had a remaster of it. But anyway, Ocarina of Time is similar to how Final Fantasy VII is the RPG that every game is like held up to. Ocarina of Time is, I guess, what would we call it? Action adventure?
It is an
3D
action adventure game.
Adventure.
It's got little bits of maybe some hints of RPG elements in it, but Ocarina of Time really was a action adventure game.
And it was the original open world 3D game that every open world 3D game is now going to be compared to.
But it was built on the Mario 64 engine.
True.
And actually shares a lot of like the camera transitions, you know, like when Link goes through a door and it does like the thing. It's like exactly the same as Mario 64.
Now,
You know?
I guess that is fair that we could say a lot of the things we're going to say about Ocarina of Time, you could really say Mario 64 kind of was the breakthrough platformer that every 3D platform adventure game is also compared to, but because they came out so close to each other. Going back to what makes Ocarina so special, once again, we have some of the greatest video game songs of all time. So when we're talking about greatest games of all time, it's going to come with a stacked soundtrack.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, and people, people make this.
But they're not original.
People make this mistake all the time because they're like they talk about specific songs from Ocarina of Time, and at least half of those were actually from A Link to the Past.
True, very true.
Zelda's theme was in A Link to the Past, you know, which that's from Link to the Past. It's used in Ocarina of Time, but it's from A Link to the Past. And you can find examples of that all over the place. But good songs that were created specifically for Ocarina of Time are the main theme, you know, and Song of Storms. Those were songs made specifically for Ocarina of Time. Almost everything else is from A Link to the Past.
But in my mind, I'm going through like every single song from quick tangent. Back when I first got my iPod way back in the mid 2000s, half of my iPod was just different original soundtracks of Zelda games and Mario games, and then all of the remix songs from OC Remix. So like again, Ocarina of Time stacked soundtrack, so good. But anyway,
but that's the thing.
that's just
It was important
Yeah.
for this debate, which I would say that we still saw elements of this debate last until at least we get to like the late 2000s, like because by 2010 the gaming landscape had really completely changed.
That's true.
Thank you, Xanabrow, a member for 61 months, but you've been around for much longer than that, saying, "What's up, y'all? Happy Saturday. P.S. Just wanted to say, Richie, I understand why you don't animate the crossguard blades. That hurts."
he's making lightsaber
animation
right
things. Thank you, Xanabrow. Yeah, it's a pain. Anyways, so Ocarina of Time, it was part of that debate. But that's the thing, even after that debate kind of faded out, because then we got Twilight Princess, then we got Skyward Sword, and of course, eventually we get Breath of the Wild. People, you know, so Ocarina's light kind of faded a little bit, except for old guys like us. But like people still talk about Final Fantasy VII. So I think that ultimately, especially, so I think like relevance, Final Fantasy VII won. Money-wise, made twice as much money, and just as a cultural impact, you know, I think Final Fantasy VII would eventually. I think we'll call it right now that Final Fantasy VII won that debate. And people are like, "What?" Because it kind of that debate softly just disappeared and died into ether. But I would say that Final Fantasy VII was the winner of that. So now, and we spent so much time on
And
that.
it sucks because I want to disagree with Richie because Ocarina was such a great game. But I get Rich's point. I will say this. If Nintendo does an Ocarina of Time remake and gets interest back up for the Switch 2, maybe it can kind of revitalize it and kind of bring some attention back to it. But I will say just a few other things I liked about Ocarina. I mean, it had this great open world, really good puzzles. it had an epic feel to it that I really can't explain, and almost no other video game, no other Zelda game has even had that feel. There's an epic feel you get from Ocarina of Time that I think only the original Lord of the Rings trilogy can capture, because it doesn't quite get captured in any other Zelda game. Like, even Breath of the Wild, as much as I like it, it doesn't have that just simple epicness of Ocarina. I can't explain it
we talked
anymore.
about this a while back. Breath of the Wild, I think, is actually the better game, but it doesn't have
yeah.
the story that Ocarina has, and that's what drove you at that time. Was, Link starts out as a boy, and then he's an adult, and he's got to save the land.
And there's all this time travel back and forth between adult Link and young
actually,
Link.
that is the exact same plot of Fallout 3. Much later, but we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, Chris, before we move into the 2000s, I want to say some honorable mentions
and
from
this is that era, the 64 PlayStation 1 era.
Honorable mentions from the late 90s. I would say Metal Gear Solid. That's one of my favorite games of all time. Again, I'm trying not to be like biased. We could talk all day about my favorite games. We're talking about the best games of all time. Your favorite game might not necessarily be the best game of all time. Learn to divide your nostalgia from reality. Anyways, so Metal Gear Solid, the Resident Evil series, one of the Resident Evils may actually make the list later, but for the most part, at that time, we had Resident Evils 1, 2, 3. We had Parasite Eve, also made by Square. Granted, I was a big fan of both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Those were some of my favorites at that time. Banjo-Kazooie, of course, was really big.
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie,
super fun.
Good.
Anyway, so now let's move into.
Actually, real quick. I saw one person mention this, and I do think it needs an honorable mention. The Game Boy games, Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. Those are probably not on the list.
I forgot about Pokemon.
I should just say, because we're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. Actually, we'll just... Thank you, Xander
Thank you, Xander Brown, who super chatted and said, speaking of Final Fantasy, I just played it and was like, I recognize the music. Thank you, Xander Brown.
And I do think it was, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There was a comment, actually, just really quick on that. Somebody left a comment in our short video, if you guys watched it, where Rich actually edited in all the Final Fantasy music and was like, I never played any of the Final Fantasy games, but I got hit by a blast of nostalgia, and that's a testament to the soundtrack for Stupid Mario Bros., because Rich used so many of those songs.
Which is so interesting to think about, because, I think I've spent 25% of my life playing Final Fantasy games, maybe. Maybe not as much lately, but definitely when I was a kid, it was just full of Final Fantasy. So anyways, thank you, Xander Brow.
Going back real quick, so just to wrap it up on Pokemon, I do think it's worth an honorable mention because that really was a huge push for the handheld market. And that, sold those consoles. And I mean, almost every kid in the 90s and 2000s played those Pokemon games. People still reference it. People still make jokes about it. It had a huge effect on pop culture. So anyway, I do think that I wouldn't... It's hard to say.
Listen, I'm not trying to be down on Pokemon. I think that Pokemon has its place in video game history. But I don't think anybody's...
If we're going to say handheld games, not console, if we're going to put it in its own category...
The best Game Boy game of all time was, still, and is Tetris, Chris.
That's a good point.
Pokemon, listen, I'm not trying to be down on Pokemon. It's kind of like a lesser Final Fantasy or whatever.
Final Fantasy Light.
Now I'm being elitist about it. No, Pokemon's great. Pokemon's great. Would I ever say it's the best? No. Would I ever say any of them are my favorites in any respect? No. They're good. But that's kind of like KOTOR to me, like Knights of the Old Republic. I love Star Wars, and I love Knights of the Old Republic. Is it as good as Final Fantasy? No, so it never belongs on any of these lists.
But honorable mention.
Honorable mention, Knights of the Old Republic kicks ass.
Anyway.
But it's just not good enough to make the list.
Continuing.
Sorry. One person at least is pissed off at me now. All right. Now we're in the 2000s. So we start out, again, we're not going to go over every game because that would take forever. But I do want to say that, the things at the beginning of the decade were pretty much dominated by the emergence of the Grand Theft Auto series, which was, not very popular before GTA 3. GTA 3 came and changed. It's one of those games where you can honestly say changed everything. The way that people think about we said the same thing for Ocarina of Time. It might even be more true for Grand Theft Auto 3. Every video game today is Grand Theft Auto 3, if you think about it. The structure of open world gaming with the minimap collecting guns, collecting money, choosing your routes on which story you want to get through, all of that. It's not just the beginning of modern GTA. It's the beginning of all open world gaming, really. Beat Morrowind by a year, by the way. Just so you know, people are like, who Elder Scrolls fans out there? That beat Morrowind by a year. Now I'm sure they were developing Morrowind, but there's two different types of open world gaming, right? You have your Grand Theft Autos and your Saints Rows and your Red Dead Redemptions. They do open world one way, and then you have your Elder Scrolls and your Fallout, and they do open world very differently. I would say the biggest difference, obviously, is the perspective. Grand Theft Auto games, Saints Row games, Red Dead Redemption, those are all in third person. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, those are first person. And that kind of changes the dynamic of the game. I didn't think I was going to get into this, but I guess I will a little bit, just by saying there are two different types of open world games, and primarily there is the Rockstar way of doing things, and then there's the Bethesda way of doing things. For the record, I love both. Some of my favorite, and we'll get to this a little bit later when I keep jumping the gun because we're still in the early 2000s now, but GTA 5 and Skyrim are definitely in my top 5 games of all time, some of my favorites, and we're going to get to those in a minute. But they do open world extremely differently.
Now, there's some other thing. I don't know if you've gotten to... I have a few games in my head that are from this era, but I'll let you finish because I don't know if they're on your list or not, but go ahead and continue.
Anyways, but would you concur that, I know people will argue, but like GTA 3 was extremely
yeah.
impactful.
I never played it, but I heard about it.
And
that's when I first started to hear everybody talk about GTA. I hadn't even heard about it before then.
Yeah. And and then we got, Vice City and San Andreas, and they just kind of kept perfecting the way that it was done. In 2002, we got the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And again, I don't care who you are, you didn't play the first 2 games. Or maybe you did. But it's just so funny how people are like, I've played all 5 Elder Scrolls games. No, you didn't. Did you? A lot of these kids weren't even alive in the 90s. Maybe they've gone back, I'll give you credit. Maybe you went back and played Arena, whatever. But I doubt most people did. They're fun. But the series really began with Morrowind, as far as I'm concerned. That is like the first one where you could see the beginnings of what would become Skyrim and so forth, Anyways, Morrowind in 2002, great. Oblivion in 2006, better. Maybe even best, depending, but for some people. In 2007, we got BioShock and Super Mario Galaxy. Fallout 3 came out in 2008, New Vegas in 2010, and Red Dead Redemption in 2010. So, Chris, and what I did was I wanted to say all the games of the decade, and then we can kind of go back and talk about.
I was
going to
say I hate to do this, but you're conducting with your microphone.
Oh,
you got to keep it so people are. It's going to be.
Sorry,
so you got to keep it here. But anyway, no, that was great. But I'm surprised because there's several on here that you did not mention that I'm shocked.
I'm sure I didn't. And I was going to let you fill in. I saw there was a lot of people I see in the comments that I was thinking about Spider-Man's, Half-Life's, Blibbity Blop. But to me they're good games, but are they the best games of all time?
So these are all great examples, but there are a few that weren't mentioned that need to be mentioned. RTSs. We have not talked about StarCraft 2 or Age of Empires 2.
Ooh.
And, I mean, those 2 games, again, I guess we're getting more into a specific genre. To this day, people still are talking about those 2 games. And then, of course, we didn't even mention Halo. The Halo series basically picks up where GoldenEye left off, and for years, everybody always asked, what's going to be the next Halo killer? But we get Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3. Gotta mention Halo 2 probably specifically because of Xbox Live, and I would say that is such a genre-defining game because if you think about all the famous first-person shooter games like the Call of Duties, the Battlefields, I would even say the PUBGs and the Fortnites.
I was going to say, don't forget about Counter-Strike.
Oh,
back
right,
in the day.
right, Counter-Strike. But I would say Halo 2 specifically with Xbox Live and the LAN parties, but really it's Xbox Live. That definitely took the kind of GoldenEye 64 walked so that Halo could run. And I do think that it was genre defining. And during this time, we get World of Warcraft, which, again, there were other MMOs before that, whether it be EverQuest or Final Fantasy 11. But
So even though it's not a super chat, I just want to say Runifer says we've made sure to mention Ocarina of Time, right?
we
spent like 20 minutes
or
on
30
that.
minutes on it. But welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, yeah. This whole stream was started by whether or not Ocarina of Time or Final Fantasy VII is the GOAT. But anyway, I just wanted to mention, so all those, we got the RTSs, we've got the first-person shooters, and then we've got the MMOs, and I would say World of Warcraft, people for the past 20 years have been asking, will there be a WoW killer? And I don't think there has been.
In terms of finances, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy, what's the newest one?
There's been two. So Final Fantasy 11 was online and Final Fantasy 14 is
Right.
online. Final Fantasy 14 improves much of the formula. And I've had a lot of fun with Final Fantasy 14. But honestly, I've yet to play any MMO that really like sucks me in the way that I want it to.
did?
Or, yeah, well, 11. Yeah, 11 was probably the closest. Yeah. And yeah, again, it made improvements, but there was something about waiting hours for a team to get together before you could go out and fight stuff.
And that's just very briefly.
11.
You guys know I'm a big World of Warcraft fan, and I like Classic. And one of the things that they realized, and why Classic and Vanilla got re-released, is because some of the quality of life things that they did, like making it so you could instantly party with somebody or flying mounts, it took away the organic gameplay where if you have to spend time messaging people to make a party, to go do an instance or dungeon run, that time that you put in, like just the instead of being able to teleport right to the dungeon, when you have to walk there and it takes a while and you're chatting with the person in your party, or when you have to spend time to get a party together, you're more invested and you don't want to bounce if your party wipes the dungeon. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of the quality of life improvements that they put in retail WoW slowly took the magic away that made people so nostalgic for these older games, where it's like, well, wait, why would you want to do something that takes a lot of time and wastes time? That's when the magic is, because when you're bored, you're chatting with the people. So anyway, long story short, I did want to at least mention that World of Warcraft, many people have considered it the greatest game of all time. And I would actually say it's in a fair contention because of how much money it made, how many people have played it. And it is the pinnacle of the MMO genre, as much as Rich might want to disagree. WoW is the game people think of when they think of MMOs.
McKinley Miles says GameCube, Melee, maybe? A Luigi's Mansion, perhaps, please?
You know what? Actually, in terms of fighting games, Melee, I would say people do actually consider probably the GOAT.
Actually, I did have one GameCube game on the list that for some reason I skipped over. Resident Evil 4, which originally came out exclusively for the GameCube in 2004, was definitely on my list here. And again, we're saying, like, just again to clarify, every game that I'm mentioning here, whether it's GTA 3, Resident Evil 4, Oblivion, BioShock, all of these games, I'm saying that when they came out, some people were like, this is the greatest game of all time. This is the best game of all. I'm not saying that they're the best now. I'm saying that when they came out, they could have been considered the best for their time or of all time at that time. As far as I'm concerned today, I'm jumping the gun because I think it must be said. As far as I'm concerned, there are only two games that could be considered the best game of all time. And that is either Chrono Trigger or The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Those are the only two. And if you're not old enough to have played Chrono Trigger, then there is only Skyrim.
Really? So you wouldn't even put Final Fantasy VII in that list?
It's in my top 5, for sure. It's in my top 5, for sure.
Rich, you're like,
best
I'm
Final
changing my
Fantasy
mind
game. But again, it really comes down between Chrono Trigger, and really that's if I'm feeling nostalgia, or Skyrim, so... That's it. I mean, for most people, it would be Skyrim. You would be correct, sir, and you would be making a, what do they call it? What's it called when it's factually correct? It's
technically correct.
No, but there's a better word. No, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's like, it's when you're like, that is factually correct, but it's the better word for that.
It'll come to him later. With that said,
okay.
I'm sure
Skyrim.
I'm sure we'll get there. Because that's 2011. But just to finish up this thing, I saw Xanderbrow briefly mention Mario 64. We spent more time talking about Ocarina of Time than we did Mario 64. But I will say, if you watch our video we made a few years ago where we ranked all the Mario games, we spent a lot of time on why Mario 64 is the greatest Mario game of all time. And Rich did a great job to basically going through the vibes, the feels, the music, the puzzles. And to be fair, 64 did set the bar pretty high. Another game that some, I would say, probably might consider it. I mean, definitely the speedrunning community. When I think of some of the greatest speedrunning, if you watch people speedrun Mario 64, that is amazing, especially if you watch the Summoning Salt gaming documentary videos. But anyway, long story short, we should get back to where we're at. So we were jumping at all the different genres.
I just wanted to say,
so
McKinley Miles said, sorry to interrupt. Please don't be sorry. That is the point of a super chat.
Oh, yeah.
Is to interrupt us. Please, more people interrupt us.
Yeah, if anybody wants to super chat, we very much appreciate the super chats.
We appreciate being interrupted.
It supports the channel, so interrupt us as much as you want with super chats.
It was like, reminds me of the producers. It's like, explain away. Like, just.
But like I was saying, though, the 2000s, there were a lot of games that came out that I would call genre goats.
Genre defining.
Like, just to recap, World of Warcraft probably would be considered setting the bar for MMOs. Halo, and then I guess Call of Duty was coming out around that time too. But I do think Halo really set the bar for online first-person shooter games. This was, again, the 90s. RTSs, you could go back and forth between Age of Empires 2, Warcraft 3, and StarCraft 2. But there's a lot of genre-defining games that come out around this time. Oh, and
thank you, Xander Brow, for your generous super chat. And again, it's okay to interrupt us. We want you to interrupt us. Xander Brow says, how many times have you created a new Skyrim character before finishing the story? P.S. Now that's an idea for a series, a Skyrim show where the character gets lost on side quests.
Thank you, Xander Brow.
Oh, I see. Maybe you mean I create a new one before I'm done with the game. I usually play the whole game all the way through. I'm not really like when I play a game, I sit down and it's been a long time since I played a game in one sitting. Usually with Skyrim, and I'll play Skyrim at least once, like every other year, and I'll go through the whole game. It probably takes me, gosh, these days I'm so busy with things. Probably takes me like 2-3 weeks to get through the game. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've had to like stop and like remake my character, especially in an Elder Scrolls game where you don't really ever see your character's face because, again, it's a first-person game, so you don't really see your character. And even if in those moments where you're like on a horse or like it's doing a transition where you do see your character, I'm wearing like a big helmet that you can't really see the character's face anyway. For Skyrim, I usually go Nord or Khajiit. Yeah, thank you, Sam. I love making my Khajiit. And by the way, because Chris doesn't know, Khajiit is like a big cat. You're like a bipedal like cat person with a tail and ears. You look like a cat if a cat was a person. You're like Black Panther if the costume was how he was,
Nice.
You're a big cat man. So I try to make my Khajiit characters look like my actual cats. The last time I played Skyrim, my character's name was Gary, and I made him look exactly like my cat Gary. And that's a lot of fun for me. So thank you, Xander Brow. I do get lost in side quests all the time, though. But that's every time I play it. Anyways, Chris, what were we talking about?
So we were talking about the GameCube era, which is also the original Xbox era, and the PlayStation 2 era. Now,
PS2.
You should probably give a shout out.
Dreamcast. That was.
I think the PS2 has more games published on
than any other console.
That is true. And is the PS2 the highest selling console?
It is the highest selling console of all time. Remember, we looked this up not that long ago, but it's true. PS2 is the greatest selling console of all time. Had more games, than any other console. It was the prime. It was the early 2000s. That was prime video gaming,
Yeah, and remember, this is when the Dreamcast dies, and then we get the original Xbox. So it's all around.
Yeah,
this
the Dreamcast died pretty quickly after the PS2 came out, and then the Xbox came out. And now, again, here's the thing to remember. I know, you people probably notice I don't usually include a lot of Xbox stuff.
I did spend some time talking about Halo, but what else is there on the Xbox?
But I mean, it's like for every, it's like, I mean, I don't want to dissuade you or anything, Chris. Like, there's a good argument to be made about how I love I did love Halo. I think it's a lot of fun. Do I think it's the best first-person shooter of all time? Probably not, but I did have a lot of fun with it back in the day.
And it's funny because I do think that Halo got overtaken by Call of Duty, and then Call of Duty got overtaken by Fortnite. So it's like, there's always another one.
It just depends, right? But the thing is, the Xbox has never been that big in Japan. And I know people might not think that that matters because the North American market is bigger, but I think that when I think of video games, and again, because I grew up in the 90s, I think of Sony and Nintendo, Japanese companies. To me, video games will always be very Japanese in origin. So this American video game, the Xbox, it's like, to me, it never really fit. And it doesn't actually sell that well in Japan either. And maybe they're extremely biased over there. But, I had some good times. I haven't had an Xbox since the 360. I had an Xbox, and then I had an Xbox 360. I never got an Xbox One or an XS or S, whatever. I haven't had one since the 360.
Well, I mean, because if you own a PlayStation, that's where all the good games are, or a PC. So
I just, Halo was the reason. It used to be the reason to have an Xbox for me, at least. And then Bungie left Microsoft, so then it's like, whatever.
Great question. Thank you, Santa Brow, who super chatted $1.99 and
Thank
said,
you, Santa
"Game you raged the most." Go.
Now I could take this two different ways, right? Like,
well, you got angry at a game.
Like game that.
I want to hear what you
Yeah,
mean
I was
by
going to
that.
say it's either the game that I got angry at the most, or game that I like. I just
with,
like I have to beat it. I have to beat it. I have to beat it. Like
that's a good way, because you're angry because the game was too hard and was unfair, or you raged because it was such a disappointment. I will interpret it both ways. First way, Donkey Kong 64. There were some I was trying to 100% it, and I remember I got so mad at it. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a hard game to 100%. I actually threw my 64 controller at my console and chipped it a little bit. But in terms of the most disappointing game ever, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, watch the John Tron video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But that's more of a, I guess,
you know what?
technically-
I'm
yeah.
going to say same on that one.
Yeah.
Because, and again, it's not that Nuts and Bolts was a bad game if I ever gave it a chance to find out if that was true or not. It's just that it was so different and it was not what we were expecting. And also they kind of like did the thing that John Tron talks about in his video, how they kind of make fun of the fans of the first two too. It's like, wanted a collect-a-thon? It's like, well, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
But anyways, Sam, by the way, we did talk about Fallout earlier a little bit. I'm going to get back to it in just a second.
So we're in the 2000s.
Yeah, so we've been in the 2000s. We've kind of been stuck on a couple of things.
Yeah.
I won't go into too many details, but I do want to say that BioShock, original 2007 game, definitely in the argument for best games of all time, still, in my opinion. Mario Galaxy, obviously, we just talked about that last week, too.
True.
I don't even think it's as good as Odyssey, but I know a lot of people really love Galaxy, and Galaxy is great. I never said I didn't like Galaxy. It's just not as good as Odyssey.
But he didn't say he loved it.
Oh! So, again, we talk about Fallout 3. I think Fallout 3 was good. Actually, I think Fallout 3 is great. But really, the reason why I preface it that way is because Fallout New Vegas in 2010, that really is...
Do you have 4 hours?
Do you have 4 hours to talk about Fallout New Vegas? All I'm going to say about this is this. I definitely think, again, it's because again we have these games, and again I can't go into all of your Spider-Mans and your what other things that people bring up, like
Shadow of Colossus.
Yeah, you didn't bring up Shadow of the Colossus.
Thanks, McKinley.
Or whatever. It's like we can't go into all of those things. We'd be here all day. But I can mention games like GTA 3. I can talk about BioShock, Oblivion, Fallout New Vegas. Again, we're not talking about all of your favorite games. We're talking about legitimately the few games that could be considered the best games of all time.
And during this era, also Red Dead 1 came out. Are we officially...
We did mention Red Dead before. That was also 2010.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption is and we're gonna. I'm using 2010 as kind of the
transition year.
Transition because a lot of games actually came out in 2010.
Yeah.
Red Dead, New Vegas.
Around that time, a few years earlier, is Metal Gear Solid 4, which was a huge game too.
I think Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2009. 2009? I want to say. Or 8. It could have been 8, too. That also
it was 8, because we mentioned it in Metal Gear Solid 4. What else do I live
love
for?
Metal Gear. I mean, I remember I said earlier I love Metal Gear Solid. I love Metal Gear Solid, the whole series. But is it the best? It's hard for me to say no because it's one of my favorite series. But that's the thing, guys. You have to separate your favorites from the best. Nostalgia versus the truth. And a lot of people cannot separate the two. Or
It's
they
a
think
tricky
that
one to
maybe
do.
I'm wrong. And that's true. Who knows?
So, what is the next era you want to focus on? Or any game in particular?
So, again, all I'm going to say about New Vegas is it's great. Don't do it, Chris. Don't do it. I know you saw what I saw.
I saw what you
Don't
saw.
do it.
Are you going to talk about it in a bit?
No, not
it's
at all.
Not
We're not mentioning it at all. Don't do it, Chris.
Okay.
He's talking about Kingdom Hearts.
I know.
We're not doing it.
EDMG, thanks. Thanks for mentioning it.
I mean, someone would have to super chat an awful lot of money because, as EDMG said right there, do you have all day? Do you have all day to talk about Kingdom Hearts? No, we're not talking about it.
Watch the wiki, Richie.
Yeah, there's a whole wiki about it. Thank
I
you,
just saw the
McKinley Miles.
Kinley's super chat.
Guitar Hero. We had some fun playing Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Remember Beatles Rock Band?
I do remember that.
I would never
will
say it's the best game of all time.
I mean, in terms of the rhythm games, and thank you, McKinley, for the super chat. The ones I think of when I think of rhythm gaming, because that's that genre, it's Dance Dance Revolution, and then the competition between Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And I will say, we did actually have an era that many of you probably went through in like 2007 or 2009, where we were playing a lot of Guitar Hero, and it was really fun.
Anyways, so again,
Kingdom Hearts!
I could wax poetically about New Vegas all day, but Fallout New Vegas, and you could see its impact today. The second season of the upcoming second season of the Fallout show on Amazon is going to be all New Vegas stuff. Mm-hmm. Love New Vegas, but let's move on.
We're
to 2011.
okay
With Skyrim and Minecraft.
Oh,
2 games.
we're actually now in real GOAT territory here.
And again, this
Greatest
was
of all
what,
time.
14 years ago. But still,
No, that's true.
those are 2 games. And I already said for me, Skyrim would be the best game of all time if it wasn't for Chrono Trigger. And if I was born 10 years later, it would definitely be Skyrim because I wouldn't have played Chrono Trigger or whatever. But yes, Skyrim, definitely in the argument. That's like legitimate. And God, I'm mad at myself so much right now that I can't think of the phrase that I want to use for, it is objectively the best. That's what I'm trying to say. Objectively. You know what I love about that phrase? It's one Garrett uses all the time. It's objectively the best. Because it means that you can have your own opinion, but Skyrim is objectively the best. You know?
So, explain.
It's to shut you down.
I mean, to be fair,
like,
I remember you said the reason that I like Breath of the Wild so much is you said it's basically Skyrim Zelda.
well, yeah, I mean,
So what
Breath of
did-
the Wild did borrow a lot from Elder Scrolls.
What did Skyrim do that redefined the? Because that's the open world action RPG, or what even is the genre?
Chris has never played Skyrim.
I've never played Skyrim.
It's like open world, and we're talking really open world. Like it's a huge map with tons of things to do. So, after the opening sequence and you escape the dragon, you can go and do anything. Nobody's telling you what to do. You go, there is a main plot you can follow where you help the dragons leave Skyrim or whatever. And you can do that, or you can spend hundreds of hours doing other things in the game. It doesn't matter. You've got a whole world to, take out bandits, or join vampires, or become a werewolf if you know what I mean? You can do anything in that game.
So it sounds like it's the fantasy game.
It is. I would say that, oh yeah. I would say that Skyrim is the fantasy game, yeah.
What makes it, are there any other, I mean, I guess... Maybe is it because no game has come close since then? I mean, I have heard some people say, oh gosh.
Well, okay, so again, we talked about, I loved
we're jumping
Oblivion
ahead.
at the time. When the Oblivion Remastered came out not too long ago, it reminded me how much I also loved Oblivion. However, still, even though as much as I love Oblivion, you go back and play Skyrim. Skyrim is, bigger and better in almost every way. And I know it's already been remastered to death, but maybe Skyrim deserves another, because the Oblivion remaster was so awesome. It made me think, oh man, I think Skyrim needs another fresh coat of paint. But Skyrim, you can get Skyrim on anything, or you can get on your Samsung refrigerator. Remember that video that was
That's right,
and
with Key and
now
Peele.
on your Alexa or whatever. But Skyrim is big. And I would say it's been 14 years, so I think that enough time has gone by to say, like, does this game still hold up? Yeah, people are still playing Skyrim today. Tons of people, you know?
It is subjectively the best game of all time. Because subjective is, means it's your opinion.
You know, it's whatever. So
now, here's the thing, though, Rich. Minecraft. I'll let you say this. What's the trivia fact that makes Minecraft unique compared to every other game in the world?
So, Minecraft is another game that came out in 2011 that I'm still playing. I played it yesterday. You know, I play it all the time. One of the things that does help is they're constantly, it's like, oh, here's Minecraft 1.21.0, you know, like they keep doing more updates, adding more things to the game. When the game first came out, you were basically just chopping down trees and building mud houses. Then eventually over time, we got the Nether, and then we got the end, and then the dragon fight at the end, and then we got more wood, more biomes, more, you know, things for villagers to do, more things to build, more places to go. So it's like they keep updating the game. It never gets a true sequel. They just keep adding more to the game, which adds to the playability of it. It's like there's no end to it. It's like Minecraft is the one game that for the last 14 years has received a new DLC every year since it came out, basically.
And what I was trying to set you up for is the trivia, and I'll really cue it up. When we went on Wikipedia to see what video games sold more than literally any other game ever.
I think it is Minecraft, isn't it?
It's Minecraft.
Minecraft has sold like almost 40 million copies.
More. Could you look it up real quick? I really want to get this number right. But I remember when we looked it up last time, I was surprised by this because I thought it was going to be something else. But it does make sense because it's been around for 15 years. It's on almost every console. They keep on adding new content. It is the crafting and building game that is like every other game has been trying to capture that magic. Is it number one?
Yeah. So by a long shot too. I'm trying to get
by
the
a long
exact
shot
thing because it's like, so Minecraft has sold over 350 million copies as of 2025.
That's amazing.
That's over 350 million copies sold times however much the game cost. And I mean, it's a ridiculous number. Which that's what I'm trying to get is like the actual money made, but which for some reason eludes me. What?
She's just talking.
We could hear the baby babbling.
She's like, actually, Rich.
Actually, Rich, the best game hasn't even come out
and
yet.
would you be in like instead of being like, wow, my baby can talk, I'd be like, call me Dad. Anyway, so it sold over 350 million copies. It's the winner. It is the winner by a large margin.
Yeah, it depends on how you're defining best. But if we're talking about best,
The most successful
in
has been
success,
Minecraft. Yeah.
it's Minecraft. And in terms of here's a fun
But
one,
Chris,
Rich.
that's if success is money.
Here's here's actually a fun one for you. If you had to guess, and I know that you probably don't know for sure, which video game have you put more hours into? Skyrim or Minecraft?
It's funny. It's probably I've probably spent more time in Skyrim than any other game ever, with the exception of Minecraft. That's what I'll say. And it's not like it's because Skyrim is something I play by myself all the time, where, you know, and I love getting absorbed into that world, you know, and you know, just immersed in it, you know. But Minecraft is a game that I can play with my wife or with friends, or, you know, where I've had servers for Minecraft in the past. And it's a game that we just do for fun. And, you know, yeah, I've probably spent a good more time with Minecraft. But if it wasn't for Minecraft, again, just like, then I know if you count up all the hours, for some reason, Steam, it doesn't list my Skyrim hours. I don't know why. I think it's because I lost the game or deleted the game and re-uploaded, or so. It says 0. My PlayStation says I've played over 1,000 hours of Skyrim. I know that my PS4 said I had over 1,000 hours of Skyrim. I know that I've played thousands of hours of Skyrim, okay? I couldn't tell you the exact number because data gets lost. And remember, we've been playing Skyrim since the PS3. And I would say that I played it more back then, but it's hard to say. But if I had to make a guess, I'd say I have maybe spent 10,000 hours playing Skyrim. But that means I've spent a whole lot more time playing Minecraft, which is crazy.
I had to read McKinley's comment real quick. So McKinley says, actually Fortnite from the baby. Which is funny because I would say briefly on Fortnite, I mean, that's the game that I gotta say, I heard somebody say this once, that when the news starts to do segments on kids are skipping school to stay home and play a video game, there's two I can think of where this happened: World of Warcraft and Fortnite.
Rosalina says, chicken jockey. Thank you for your super chat.
Thank you, Rosalina.
64. Okay, so there are 4 more games I want to mention for the 2010s. GTA 5 from 2013, Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, both from 2017, and and Red Dead Redemption 2 from 2018. So, and I don't have anything else after that because
I got one more, actually, another genre or another category we could do that I think you'll enjoy. But sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's talk about those 4 briefly, but I don't have anything after 2018 because I realized that all of the games that I play, like Red Dead Redemption 2, sadly,
came out in
whatever,
2018.
is probably the newest game that I play still.
And some people actually would consider that in the running for greatest game of all time.
Listen, I think Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't know why this is a hot take, but it's better than the first game. That's a hot take for some people. The first game is amazing.
The first game is really good.
But the first game doesn't have, what are we doing here, Dutch?
I mean, yeah, and no, you do feel like you're playing through a movie. And it is one of the I just watched a whole bunch of video essays on why Red Dead is one of the greatest games ever made. I do think, Red Dead 2 specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, it again, like, until GTA 6 comes out, when Rockstar goes all in on a game, I mean, Red Dead, it is an amazing story. Good music, good characters.
That soundtrack. Red Dead Redemption 2, there's that one song in the middle, which, man, Chris, you got to finish playing that game because I don't even know.
I know how it ends.
There's an important moment in the middle where the song is like, will I stand unshaken amidst a miscrowded world, or whatever the song is. It's a great moment in the game. Red Dead Redemption 2 is so amazing. Shame on you for not finishing it.
I know. I have a bad habit of getting halfway through a game and not beating them, but I am actually in the middle of watching the cinematic cut for Red Dead because I wanted to experience it.
But yeah, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is definitely the last
game
for me,
that could be considered in the a good. It has a good running and a lot of good. What's the word? There are a lot of people who would consider it in GOAT territory, greatest of all time.
And now 7 years later,
there is one more actually
that
I do think needs to be mentioned.
Which is,
this is a fun trivia question. Do you know what the highest rated game is on Steam that recently became? I don't think you would guess it. You might, but there was a game that just flipped number 2 and went to number 1, and it's been around for about 10 years, and it came out in the mid 2010s.
What's that?
Stardew Valley.
Oh,
Stardew Valley
Stardew
just
Valley,
became the number 1 rated game on Steam a few months ago. And it's another game, and I should say this just to give it a shout out. I know you never really got into it, but Stardew Valley takes what was amazing about the Harvest Moon series, which is, again, farming simulator. It takes some of the crafting from Minecraft. It's pushing 2D to its limits, and it's made by one guy who does all of the art and all the programming and all of the music. I think his name is Naked Ape or something Ape. He's still making content for it to this day, and if you play that game, it's one of those games that I find myself coming back to about once a year. I'll get really into it for about a concerned ape. Thank you, Rune. Negative. I don't know why it's a negative. But it is, by rating, the highest rated game on Steam, which is pretty impressive. So you could say it is at least in contention. That was the word I was looking for. It's in contention.
But when did Stardew Valley first come out, though?
It was earlier, mid-2010s. It was 11, 12, 13, 14. It was in the 2010s.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, I don't think anything after 2018.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, I agree with you on that point.
Maybe you guys have one, but...
actually, there is one, Dark Souls. I've heard a lot of people say that which one is it? The newest one? One of
Are
those
you
Dark
thinking
Souls
of
games.
Well, there's a lot of Dark Souls games, but I think the first one came out before
What
2018.
what was the
Chris.
newest one that came out that people have said? There, somebody in the chat tell me. I haven't even played it, but I've seen a lot of people say.
There was Demon Souls, then Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. I don't know if anything else has come out after that. Are you thinking of Elden Ring?
Elden Ring,
But
sorry.
that's the George R.R. Martin game.
I'm mixing up Elden Ring and Dark Souls. Thank you, but it's they're similar, right?
Yeah, well, no, but
Not even close. Never mind. Never mind. But Elden Ring? That's
Ring
one of those
was
games that
2022.
that's a goated
broke
game, right?
Corey's computer, and he had to buy a new one. It's huge, and it's a story by Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin. It is a really epic game, but I think it's great. I'm not putting it on.
Not
this
putting
list.
it in that contention. No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm trying to think if anything has even come out. But there is one I do think coming out next year that could be goated, and it's GTA 6.
GTA 6, we'll see. I was going to say, so the other games, because I waxed poetically a little bit about Red Dead 2,
yeah.
because I love Red Dead Redemption 2 so much. I want to say definitely on my top 5, but I've probably listed more than 5 games to be on my top 5 at this point.
My top 5 games, and there's like 50 games on the top 5.
20 games on my top 5. No. But, GTA 5... Well, I also said before, too, that
I forgot about that,
GTA
yeah.
5 is also on my list of top 5. The 25 games on my top 5 list, But, no, GTA 5 game is at least my favorite Grand Theft Auto game. Somebody mentioned before that they think, or they heard of somebody or something, I don't know, people argue that GTA 4 might be better. I don't even think GTA 4 is as good as GTA 3 for me, but, I don't know why I couldn't connect with that one as much. I remember... playing it for I think Grand Theft Auto Grand Theft Auto 4 might be the one Grand Theft Auto game I never finished.
Wow.
Because I just was
didn't
meh.
connect with it. Wow.
I sold it to Dane back in at some point. I remember he bought that off of me. But then GTA 5 is amazing, and I've bought it on every console I've had. It's just like Skyrim now. It's like I had it on the PS3, then the PS4, now I have it on the PS5, And technically I had to buy it on the PS5 twice, but that's another story. Right, Chris? Anyway.
What happened?
Oh, well, let's not talk about it. Oh, thank you. You know what? You might have told me last week, but I said I didn't know how to pronounce your name, and I was hoping that you would tell us how to pronounce it. It's Con Caracca. I really hope that that's how you say it. Did he ever tell us how to pronounce it? Tell us now. How do you pronounce
phonetically in the chat. But thank you. We'll just go with that.
We really appreciate
Con
you.
Caracca.
I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Anyways, says, would be remiss if I didn't mention Undertale celebrating its 10th anniversary right now, plus Deltarune. Both were inspired by the Mother games. Oh, Karaja.
Oh,
But it's Con, right? Con. So Con Karaja.
Karaja. Oh, that's interesting.
It's very cool. Very cool. Con Karaja. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people love Undertale.
That's interesting.
I know that it was inspired by, Mother / Earthbound, right? Because that's its known in America.
It's so interesting that Con Karaja is mentioning Undertale. Do you remember that acapella YouTuber named Smooth McGrew?
Yeah, Smooth McGrew
You know what
did a lot of
surprised me?
Undertale songs,
I
yeah.
went in and I sorted his videos by most popular, and I was shocked to see multiple Undertale songs at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Beating out Zelda, beating out Mario, beating out Final Fantasy. I was like, whoa, because I've only watched a little bit of video essays on Undertale. I never played it. I didn't realize that it has some of the greatest video game music of all time.
No, I love Smooth McGroove also. Yeah.
Runeford knows who I'm talking about. Yeah,
And
yeah.
his cat, remember?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Undertale is big because it was inspired by the Mother games. And I think, I love that we're finally at a time in our society where we can say the Mother games.
Instead of Earthbound?
Well, because, I used to get corrected and be like, oh, it's Earthbound.
I have
but
to say, it was kind of funny. You and I had a mild argument about this in Gangnam Style, Nintendo Style, because I wanted to say Earthbound, and you said no. Time will look back at us correctly if we say Mother instead. And Rich was right. I was wrong. So good job.
Technically, Earthbound is Mother 2, Chris. Anyways.
I take back everything I said. Rich is a dick.
No, but you're right. Well, I mean, I don't think you were wrong at that time.
Well, I
But
never
it's
called
just
it
like
mother.
now
I always called it
everybody
Earthbound.
is a nerd savant and wants to be like, it's
nerd
actually
savant, that's
mother,
true.
you know. So,
It's it's Genghis Khan, not Genghis Khan.
oh,
yeah,
get out of here with that.
Anyway,
So yeah, no, I think Undertale is a great game. It's also a great game. There's a lot of indie games that we didn't mention, obviously.
oh
but
man, we didn't even go down the
man,
indie game.
you could probably bring well, Rich, why didn't you mention Blippity Blop? And Blippity Blop might be one of my favorite games.
It's goated contention. It
Goated
has
contention.
to be in contention for greatest of all time.
Anyways, so we also mentioned Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild.
Oh yes,
Both of those games came out in 2017.
That's true.
Which one was better, Chris? Probably Breath of the Wild.
I mean Breath of the Wild.
But
yeah.
but also Mario Odyssey is one of the best Mario games. It's just hard because of like the epic nature of Zelda. I'm tempted to be like, oh, Zelda.
it's
But
because
I also had a lot of fun with Mario
Zelda
Odyssey as
has
well.
that gravitas because it's a little more serious. But I mean, again, if you guys watched our video from about 4 or 5 years ago where we went through all the greatest Zelda games of all time, we actually did the blasphemy of saying that Breath of the Wild was better than Ocarina. But I think we made one of our defining reasons is because it was actually more true to the original Zelda game, which was open world. And they went back to the original NES Zelda open world and said, no, we really want to make this new one like truly open world, not on rails. You can go anywhere
Chris,
and do anything.
It might have been blasphemy. That will make it not true. It's like, it used to be blasphemy to kiss your fiance of 5 years before you were married.
I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating the word.
I'm thinking of in the movie Dracula, Dead and Loving It. I can't believe that you touched her after being engaged for only 5 years.
I'm exaggerating here, but the point is, which is funny because there is a part of me that still wants to say Ocarina of Time is the greatest game of all time, just because for so many years. I mean, I will say this.
Like that was
I do think
standard neutral or whatever.
It was just such a big impact. I mean, and so many people talked about it. I do think that there are certain. Here's another way that we could put it: certain games you need to play someday. This is a little bit dark, but before you die, there are certain games you need to experience.
One of them is Chrono Trigger.
And I would say, in terms of. And this I will say just for the total experience, whether it be the story and the gameplay and the music and the journey that you go on, I would say Ocarina of Time is still one of those games. Chrono Trigger, which I haven't played.
Okay, Chris.
Final Fantasy VII, which I haven't played.
I was going to say, we
And
have to
Skyrim,
narrow
which
it
I
down to
haven't played.
5. Let's actually, and again,
Actually, so
I
we're
know
gonna
I
do
put
our-
a lot of games on my top 5 favorites.
So
but
now we're
let's
going to have to
actually-
do our
the
real
5 best games.
So we are now going to do what. Is this in order, or is this like we're gonna
in no particular
order?
But that
Okay.
would take way too long.
All right,
You'd be like,
all
okay,
right,
just
all right.
Skyrim and that. No,
No, fair enough.
So the top 5 best games of all time, not our favorites. What
Objectively
we're going to
the best.
objectively agree
That's
are
fair.
the 5
All
best
right.
games of all time. In no particular order.
Go ahead.
Skyrim,
Agreed.
Chrono Trigger,
Agreed.
Final Fantasy VII,
Agreed. Red Dead Redemption 2.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Oh, gotcha. And then
Wait, what have we said so far? So we did
so it's Skyrim,
Skyrim, Chrono Trigger,
Red Dead Redemption 2,
Final Fantasy VII,
Final Fantasy VII.
Ocarina of Time. Oh, he's hesitating.
Ooh, just because. Okay, so the funny thing is, because we already said that Breath of the Wild was better than Ocarina of Time, but now why are we putting it as best? Unless we're going for cultural significance, then.
Oh, I see what you mean. What would you put if you had to pick between
Remember, these are the
Ocarina
best.
or
These are
Breath
the
of the Wild?
best.
It
Tell you what,
hurts.
Chris, just so we don't go for another 1,000 years, I will concur, and we can put Ocarina of Time on this list.
It's so tough, though. It's so tough because as the years have gone by, so when we made that, it was in 2020 or maybe 2021 or 2022. We said we did put
Are you going
Breath
back
of the Wild.
now? You're like,
No,
what?
because now that several years have passed. Shoot, dude, it's
Here's
tough.
the thing, Chris.
No, I'm trying to be
said-
objective. Ocarina of Time made a bigger impact on me. But if I had to tell somebody, you either play Breath of the Wild or you play Ocarina of Time, Like, look, they're saying, ooh, it hurts in the chat. I'm thinking of that scene when you walk out and it plays the piano, the swelling piano when you walk out of the resurrection chamber and you're looking out and it has that, ooh, that's tough. But Ocarina of Time is the one that, like, was my childhood.
But we did say we're taking nostalgia out of it, Chris. But you're like, but the nostalgia, though.
No, you know what? I hate to say it. Look, I'm even looking in the chat. McKinley and Runifer are saying it's Ocarina. If I had to, but here's the thing, and this is the difference, though.
We're trying not to be biased.
Imagine a young kid, and we're going to go with your daughter. When Ripley is old enough to play video games, and you're going to sit her down and you're going to say, this is the Zelda game that's going to be the game, are you going to have her play Ocarina or Breath of the Wild?
Ocarina of Time. So I guess then Ocarina wins that one, Chris. But I'll say this.
I thought you were going to say Breath of the Wild.
No.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, I'm going to say, because I feel, for that exact thing that you just said.
Which one are you going to have your daughter play? If you could only pick the first one.
Yeah, it's going to be Ocarina of Time. And thank you for acknowledging my daughter.
We needed a tiebreaker.
It's Ripley's choice. Ripley's choice, even though she is in the other room and has no idea what we're talking about. And she's also a baby. But anyways, so I get, I will say that number 5 is Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
And again, it was no particular order. Now, if it was like my top 5 favorite games of all time, it would be like BioShock and Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, favorite,
and,
not best.
But yeah, if we were talking favorites. But we were talking best.
It's tough. And here's what it comes down to. This is where I'll steal Rich's word and switch it up. This is where it does get very subjective. And I will be honest, I waver back and forth on Breath of the Wild versus Ocarina of Time because they're both so good. But what do you guys think in the chat? I'm actually kind of curious. For all of you watching, put either Ocarina or Breath of the Wild. Which one do you think objectively is the better Zelda game? Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild? I want to see. Honestly, we should do a poll on this.
Yeah,
I am kind of curious what you guys think.
But, we'll just see what people say.
You're all Nintendo fans, I take it, so I want to know what you guys think.
What do you think? We have just finally admitted, and we'll have to delete our previous
Do we have to
video.
go back and redo our video?
We have just said we have reversed
our previous video and
the
said
best
Ocarina.
Zelda game is Ocarina of Time.
Because the impact, here's the thing though, and I think I know why. Breath of the Wild still felt fresh because we had just played it. Tears of the Kingdom just came out. It was still fresh in our minds, but now that the dust has settled and several years have gone by, I find myself thinking more about Ocarina than Breath of the Wild.
I agree.
I see McKinley and Runifer are both saying Ocarina, so
Yeah,
our fans have spoken.
Again, it needed a few more years for this decision.
Maybe, yeah.
And even now, earlier I was saying Breath of the Wild, but that's because I had already made that decision. I'm going back on my previous decision. It's Ocarina of Time. Captain Stoll says Twilight Princess. You're wrong.
Idiot Jesus Wand of Gamelin. That's that CDI Zelda game, right?
Okay, Chris. So we're going to wrap up here in just a minute.
But now we have to pick.
We've been going on.
Wait,
hold on.
Yeah,
We've been going for 105 minutes on the best video games of all time. We got one or more or two things to talk about left. But before we do, just remember, if you have any more questions, get them in now. Obviously, Super Chat's the priority. We'll try to answer as many as we can before we're done. But yeah, Chris, quickly.
There is one more question.
What?
Now we have to nail that list from the top 5. Now you have to pick
your 5 favorites.
No. Oh, no, I was going to say we have to pick the best.
Oh, the best?
Yeah.
Oh, that's impossible. Again, I'll just say for me, it's between Chrono, as I said the whole stream, it's between Chrono Trigger and Skyrim. And if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to get shot.
Because I
can't
that's dark. No, that's really good. Okay. So what you're saying is it's undecidable.
Undecidable. I don't think it's a very fair question in the first place.
Yeah.
But we made a whole stream about it, Chris.
We did. No, it was really good.
Choose 2 games. Just so that it's fair. You choose 2 games.
What are my personal 2?
Your 2 favorites.
If I have to say 2 best.
That's right.
Well, part of me wants to say Ocarina of Time versus Breath of the Wild, which we just did,
Yeah.
but there's another part of me that kind of wants to say like World of Warcraft versus like Minecraft, just because I'm thinking of what people spent the most time on. If we're talking about what had the most addictive power, because when I think of people, like if you think in terms of hours played, it's probably World of Warcraft and Minecraft, and then maybe Fortnite for the Zoomers.
But if we're talking about what people have played the most hours in from the beginning of time, Chris.
Tetris?
No, from the beginning of all time.
Oh, jeez.
I think the winner is poker. I don't know. Somebody's throwing dust.
No,
and
but
I'm
that
just
was-
thinking of Red Dead again.
That was really fun though. So, oh, here we go. We got another super chat.
McKinley
Thank
Miles
you,
says,
McKinley.
not a question. Speaking of good music, y'all got me into Nightwish. Y'all made me goth. Also, Sonic Adventure 2 and Ocarina. Because we did use Nightwish
We
in
did
Stupid
in
Mario
the,
videos.
yeah.
Thank you, McKinley Miles. And thank you for your generous super chat.
And
yeah.
Sonic Adventure 2 was a really fun game
That's funny
too.
because we were just talking about how next time we're probably going to be talking about music. Nightwish. Remember Nightwish, Chris?
I do. But thank you so much, McKinley. Did you want to wrap this up quickly with favorites? Is that what you were saying?
That's what I wanted to do, but I will say that, we probably talk about music pretty soon, and I was a little, well, you know what? We'll save it for the music. I've got things to say about music.
Yeah, so I would say if we're going with just favorites, and again, now we're being truly subjective because it's just whatever one you had the most fondest memories. I mean, for me, it's got to be Banjo-Kazooie. Like, that's the game that I always find my mind drifting back to. But go ahead.
Favorites from, obviously Banjo-Kazooie is great. When I think of my favorite video games, and again, we just talked an hour and a half about best video games, but my favorite video games would have to be like the Fallout series. And again, we talk about BioShock. I love BioShock. And I love, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I love things like Parasite Eve and kind of weird horror video games, indie games. Though it wasn't indie, it was by Square, but you know what I mean. It was lesser known. Vagrant Story is a lesser known game that I really love. Sam super chatted, thumbs up. What?
Thank you, Sam. If there's a comment you wanted to make, go for it. I wasn't sure if that should have a comment attached, but thank you for the super chat. I would say there's a few others when I think of favorites, like a great example. Some of those, like Mario RPG and all the RPG spin-offs, whether it be Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, or Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga.
Oh yeah, Superstar Saga.
Like,
all
we're talking
those.
these ones that I remember really, and then then there's Animal Crossing or some of the other Mario. I know you weren't a Sunshine fan, but I really like Sunshine.
Hey, I like Sunshine. It's just not as good.
I know. Okay. And then there's other games think about the Mario Karts, the Mario Parties.
You've had carts, you've had parties, you've had tennis matches.
I'm trying to think of. I guess Pokemon. Actually, this is where Pokemon would properly fit because I'm sure people spent hours playing Pokemon. I'm trying to think of what other games that I remember. I'm thinking of what I have the really warm fuzzy nostalgia for. Off the top of my head, Stardew Valley, actually, I would say it is the top rated fan favorite. So that would very much be in that favorite game of all time. Oh, here we go. Did you know that Sam is bad at internet? Isn't Nightwish from Phantom of the Opera? Is that where they get the name from? Maybe it is.
No.
Or they did a Phantom of the Opera song. I know they did.
Well, they might have covered a Phantom
of the Opera song.
But no, when I think, what's the Nightwish song that we kept using?
Well, ours was Ghost Love Score.
Yeah, Ghost Love Score.
And we did a few others of them.
But how did it go, Chris?
Ba, 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 ba.
Yeah, so I just wanted to. It was the
song.
season 2 opener, right?
It was. It's actually really funny. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but the way I discovered that song was I randomly saw a YouTube video where people were putting Mentos into Pepsi. And they did a compilation using that song. And I was like, this song's hilarious. And I only heard about it because there was a Mentos Pepsi, they explode
Right,
and
yeah.
the fuzz goes everywhere. But I showed it to Rich. And then Rich was like, yeah, that's pretty good. We're going to put that in Super Mario Bros. But yeah, we could go on and on and on and on and on. There's so many games I'm sure that we're missing, but this was a good stream, and I feel like we very detailed went through the eras, gave some good reasoning for why some games are in GOAT contention.
I love everybody who was like, "Well, what about Red Dead Redemption 2?" When we were still talking about Super Mario Bros.
We were still on PS1 and N64. Yeah. It's
well,
all good.
because I did want to do some I wanted this to be organized in that way. Otherwise, it would just be like. Blah, 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 blah.
I thought you were going to say Oregon Trail there for a second, which would be another fan favorite.
That's technically Oregon Trail too, but you know.
Oregon Trail 1 is the one that is the most meme-ified, like you just died of dysentery or whatever, but yeah. And a lot of people played it.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, I think this is a good time to wrap up.
Yeah, that was a good one.
You know,
Holy
we
smokes.
got a lot of other things that we can be talking about in the in next time. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
No.
but we could talk about favorite music, and favorite video game music and other things. But yeah, we'll get back to you. When we get back to you.
This was a great topic, by the way.
I
mean, obviously, our YouTube channel was all about video games because we were the Stupid Mario Bros. And we used a lot of video game music in that whole soundtrack. Oh,
hey,
there,
Vanellope got out of the room she was trapped in. Well, anyways.
I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you, everybody who tuned in. And thank you again to everybody who super chatted. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our back and forth. Yeah. That was a good one.
Cat. Anyways, we hope that you have a wonderful day.
And an even more pleasant tomorrow.
We reverse that. All right, Chris, take us away.
Ugh. I feel like we need like a song or something to play us out, Rich, or something.
Reach out and touch somebody's cat. I don't know.
Well, hey, guys, thanks again for watching our stream tonight. We hope to see you guys on the next one. Oh, here's how we can end it. Rich, you got to do a please subscribe voice for us.
Please subscribe. It's free and easy, just like trying to get a cat to not claw your brand new shirt.
That's pretty good. All right, guys, we're going to sign off here. So take care, peace out, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
And bye.